Hey, Jeremy Hauser here, host of the Advisor Mentorship Podcast. Looking forward to bringing this episode to you, a conversation with Matt Halloran, who shares some great, impactful ways to not only market your business as a financial advisor in 2025, sales tips and training opportunities for advisors, how to convert prospects from prospects to clients in a lot shorter sales cycle, thanks to some of these tips that Matt talks about. He also discloses a new book that he recently dropped that hopefully you'll be able to get a copy here at the end of this episode. So looking forward to bringing this to you. Make sure to subscribe on your favorite listening device to the Advisor Mentorship Podcast. And with that, let's go ahead and kick off this episode.
Systems work, people fail. Welcome to InsureMark's Advisor Mentorship Podcast with Vice President Jeremy Hauser.
'Tis the season. With Christmas and holiday seasons upon us, we have a gift for the listener today. Welcome to this week's episode of the Advisor Mentorship Podcast. I am your host, Jeremy Hauser, and today our guest is the world's leading influence accelerator for financial advisors, who has appeared on over 1,000 podcasts and author of the Social Media Handbook for Financial Advisors. Our guest today is Matt Halloran. How are we doing today, Matt?
I'm good, man. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Of course, I am very excited about today's episode. We got a lot to unpack here, and I referenced the book earlier, but I think for the audience to note, that's not your only book. You just came out with, so you've had 2 books you've already written, and you have a third that just recently came out. What's the name of that one?
Yeah, it's called Shut the F Up and Listen. It's a book about what I've learned on those 1,000 podcasts and interviewing about 3,000 people. Yeah, the Social Media Handbook is a wildly applicable book, just so you know, still to advisors, which I know that's your audience, and it is still absolutely available. But yeah, my new book just came out a couple weeks ago.
Love it. Love it. So and I'm going to ask probably a little bit more because that's a very creative title. So probably there's a reason for that.
Yeah.
But just for the audience, several of the listeners may not have attended Founders Club a couple years back. So seeing you on main stage a couple of years in a row. So tell the audience a little bit about who is Matt Halloran.
Well, I'm the co-founder of Proudmouth, and we're the largest podcasting company for financial advisors in North America. We specialize in the compliance component and also obviously the language, which is very, very important. But what I talk about a lot, which I'm more than happy to dive into this with you today, is the idea that content marketing is the only marketing left that actually works. It just doesn't work the same way as seminars or some of the lead generation stuff that advisors have been using in the past. You have to have a strong social media, social proof platform, which Jeremy, you do a very, very good job at this, in order so that when people do want to engage your services, they're able to look and see who the heck you are, start building that relationship when it's convenient for them. Then when they come in, it's so much easier to close the business.
Couldn't agree more. And the trend over the last couple of episodes has really been around the theme of what sells for you when you're gone for financial advisors. And I mean, you hit the nail on the head. Social media has been, as we're doing business planning for 2025 for advisors, even if they've heard and they want to get involved with doing some of the processes and resources we offer some of these advisors, they're just hesitant to it. So just before we dive into the individual advisors, so let's talk a little bit about Proudmouth and what y'all do. So I've been doing the show with Proudmouth for over 3 years now, have several advisors using Proudmouth. So over the last year or so, what's really evolved with Proudmouth over the last year?
Video, brother. I mean, that's the key, right? We were a little late to the video game because of the level of production that we were trying to execute. And then what we found out is, well, YouTube is the largest podcast player in the world. Beat Spotify, hands down by a lot. Here's the thing, Jeremy, nobody watches the damn video, but it has to be there, right? And so we found a way to produce the video, make it still very, very high quality without having to go in and do the same level of editing that we do for the podcast, because when it's audio only, that's all you got, man. And so you have to take out the sneezes and coughs and ums and ohs and, background noise and all those things, but you don't have to do that with the regular video, because we're finding that actually makes it homier and warms it up a little bit in the video perspective. So that's huge. So now that we do YouTube, we do YouTube Shorts, Instagram Reels, Facebook Stories. We do pretty much anything that you want when it comes to video. We have a really amazing video team now that does that. But the other big thing, and actually, I don't even know if you know about this, brother, is I started coaching again. Did you know about this?
I no, I did not.
All right. So I was a coach for a long, 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 long time. And about 6 months ago, Kirk and I, my business partner, the co-founder of Proudmouth, sat down and he was like, what are you thinking, dude? I was like, man, I kind of miss coaching people. And he's like, hey, let's make a podcast coaching program. And I was like, I'm in. And so we just had our first class 2 weeks ago. The second class is today when we're recording this. But we've got 2 levels. So I have one for people who have an existing podcast. So like you if you want to up your game on production performance and really profitability, that's what Sonic Boom Coaching Pro is. Then Sonic Boom Coaching is if you want to get your show started and you just want somebody to really help you get it rolling. We're starting to offer all of those. And dude, I missed it. It's so much fun. So those are the kind of 2 big things coming down the pipeline.
That's actually very exciting because I know everybody's looking to get better. And I know, for instance, this show in general just started doing more and more video. So I'm very happy that y'all are doing that for the offering for it. So if you look back, what was probably the biggest takeaway though for 2024 with y'all's team outside of video? So adapting, or what was the biggest takeaway if you look at this year on the large scale?
I think there's 3 actually. So the first one is the AI revolution, right? So how do we stay competitive in the AI marketplace where there's so much stuff that's able to be done through AI? And so Kirk and I do what we always do as founders of the business and really just nerds about this stuff, dude. We dove in. So Kirk started messing with AI. I started messing with AI. We started engaging an AI team in Oshawa, Ontario with the local university. So we really dove in. And what we found was this: AI will get you about 50% of the way.
Yeah,
it really will. And honestly, Jeremy, for somebody like you or me, or for the advisors that you're listening or that are listening to the show, it is an unbelievable tool to find out what you should be talking about, but you still have to humanize it. And so that's really, that was a huge learning experience for us, was all of these people running into the space saying, well, I can edit your podcast for $10 a month. Yeah, well, it's terrible because, it's really jerky and it's kind of robotic, to be honest, because they don't have the parameters. So AI is huge to video, right? One of the things that I love to do when I come on a show like this is to give people value as quickly as I possibly can. So when you get done meeting with a client, here's what I want you to do. I want you to grab your phone and I want you to do this and say, I just got out of a client meeting and this is what we talked about. 3 minutes or less. Do that all the time. You are never going to stop. And Jeremy, you do the same thing, brother, right? I mean, you're talking to advisors all over the country and you have a great call. Perfect time. Just grab your phone. Hey, I just talked to an advisor. Are you experiencing this? Here's how we solve this problem. It's perfect content, but it doesn't need to be perfect, right? So that's kind of the secondary thing when it comes to video. I think people just get so concerned, dude, that the video has to be perfect. Their hair has to be perfect. Everything has to be perfect. Doesn't have to be perfect. The more real it is, the better.
Yep.
And then the last part is, and you said it really well, people want to get better, dude. Like they really do. If you've thrown your hat into this content creation game, and if you just think that what you're doing is fine, it's just going to be fine. But Jeremy, and I know you pretty well, dude. Neither of us, we don't want to just be fine, dude. We want to go from good to great. And the only way that you do that is you really focus, right? You get somebody in your corner who is specially trained to be able to help you with that. And so those are kind of the 3 major things. And the response that we've gotten from all 3 of those, pretty darn tootin' good.
I think that's a fantastic 3-parter. I want to say for the video aspect of it, I'll even sprinkle in some success stories. So some advisors. So really, when you're doing your appointments, if you can build in buffers into your appointment process, meaning like 15 minutes. So never go. It's a lot of advisors I work with do virtual appointments. Maybe it's in person too, but really don't put yourself back to back to back to where after your meeting's done with this particular prospect, then you're jumping into another one. If you have 15-minute buffers, to what Matt just said, is like so key, to where now you're basically recording right then and there, not only maybe a review for the customer that you just had a great meeting with, but also to take the next level, record a video, send that over to your team to post on social media. That's really good advice of what you just gave. And I think number 3 of what you said is people wanting to get better. I really feel here over the last couple episodes, we've shared some content. You would know better than me. Podcasting. A lot of people dove into podcasting maybe in 2020, but I saw like a study that only an eighth of the podcasts that were around back then are still around. So maybe something to share with the audience around. I mean, we just had an election cycle, and I mean, you could safely say that one outlet went one direction with social media, the other outlet went mainstream media and trying to go a certain way. So maybe there's an evolution here. Can you talk to that?
Absolutely. Well, I think a lot of people started podcasting during COVID because they didn't know what else to do, but they didn't realize that it was work. Right. And so, and there's discipline surrounding it. There's post-production surrounding it. There's planning surrounding it. And a lot of people are just busy for being busy. I have to go back to something you said there, Jeremy, because, and I know this is a huge component of the value you add to advisors, but that 15-minute buffer, dude, like, do you know how life-saving that 15-minute buffer can be? That is, if you just implement nothing else from this show today, then you just do what Jeremy said, which is implement that 15-minute buffer, your life's just going to be better. But when it comes to creating content in the world today, it's not an or, it's an and. And we talk about this a lot because, especially if you're trying to take advantage of the great wealth transfer, you have to be talking to the heirs and the beneficiaries of the policies and all of the stuff that you all do, because all of you have that list. Saying to your clients, hey, give me a referral doesn't work as well anymore. You have to have this content strategy, this social proof strategy. And then when you go to your client and say, hey, you know what, Jeremy, I just did an episode on beneficiaries, right? And really what beneficiaries really need to pay attention to when they know they're beneficiaries. And then of course, when they are actually the beneficiary, your kids are your beneficiaries. You should probably share this podcast with them and tell them if they have any questions, they can reach out. So many of you all have so much opportunity within your existing book of business that you're so hungry to try to bring new business, but you're not really looking at what's already there. But getting back to the idea of, a lot of people started podcasts back then. The best time to start a podcast and to be consistently podcasting was back then. The second best time is now. This is not something you can just push aside anymore. This is something where people want a convenient, portable way to get to know you so that they come in and buy from you. And Jeremy, I'll leave you with this and I'll stop talking, but sales is fundamentally changed. Nobody wants to be sold to anymore. People want to be put into an environment that they can comfortably buy from you, which doesn't mean you don't have to sell, but it's not the same way. And that's what we wake up to do every single solitary day for our clients.
Are you an advisor currently working in your business instead of on your business each and every day? You are not alone. We come across advisors every single day that are constantly asking us, what can I do to get better? How can I go from being an advisor to a CEO? How do I delegate? If you find yourself asking you these same type of questions in your business to your team, you're in the right place. Make sure to check out our resources here at www.insuremarkamp.com/Jeremy. You can hear from successful entrepreneurial advisors like yourself as they have plugged into our systems and processes and continued to scale their business. If you are an advisor that's looking to go from advisor to CEO, make sure to go to www.insuremarkamp.com/Jeremy. Click on the Learn More section, insert your information. We'd love to get our introduction kit to you. Now, back to this episode. Couldn't agree more. Did you coin that term, social proof strategy?
No, dude, I totally stole that from Seth Godin. So that's a Seth Godin thing. I should probably do a better job of quoting the people who I stole from, but yeah, that was him.
Well, I was going to steal it from you, so I'll steal it from Seth now. That's very good.
Go ahead, brother.
So let's stay on the. We'll go to the positive. Let's stick at the negative, because that's the negative stuff of advisors who. So you guys have been doing this for years now. What are some of the traits that you find for the financial advisors that currently do podcasting episodes and they don't have success for a long term period? So what are the things that I gotchas and make sure to avoid to help the advisor who may be starting to fall off the cliff, or if they're looking to get into the episodes, to be aware of once they start to do their own podcasts?
I think the biggest thing is, and I've said this on almost every stage that I speak on, is you're never going to outspend Ken Fisher. So those of you who are generalists, which I understand that is the market that you want to go to, people over the age of 55 who are preparing for retirement is not a niche. You have to have a niche. And that's why anybody who works with Proudmouth or anybody who's on a content creation journey who isn't getting the success that they're looking for, they don't have a niche. That's it. That's number one. Always. You fall down because you get really frustrated and you're like, well, nobody's listening to my show. It's because nobody knows who is supposed to be listening to the show, and everybody's outspending you. I mean, Fisher spends tens of millions of dollars on just digital ads. You're never going to outspend Ken Fisher. So that's number one. Number two, using a guest strategy. Some of our advisors want to just monologue or just have the show be all about them. There should always be a Jeremy Hauser component, which there is on all of your shows. The Jeremy-ness needs to be there. But when you focus on guests, it actually makes you look smarter because you're bringing super smart people on. So that's really number two. And then the third one is they don't prime the pump. And the only good way to elaborate on that analogy is everybody right now is like yelling into the void of social media and wondering why nobody's listening. It's because the algorithm is waiting for you to show you're listening first, man. And so Samantha Russell from FMG, super famous in financial services, I just heard her speak recently, and she said the Pareto principle applies to social media, but you're all doing it wrong. You're spending 80% of your time posting and like no percent of your time liking and commenting and consuming social media. Mm-hmm. You got to flip that on its head. 80% of your time should be spent in you were talking about time allocation. You should be spending 2 15-minute blocks every single solitary day commenting and liking and or resharing your ideal target market's content. Because then you're telling the algorithm what you want your algorithm to be. Because Jeremy, that's it, brother. Mm-hmm. You and I, we're in the algorithm pleasing business, dude. That's the world we live in now, man. And you like it or not, but you have to pay really close attention to that.
That's so spot on too. And I know just from personal experience, it is tough because you look at it and it's like, all right, I get my social media post out and then it's on to the next activity. So that's actually really, really good advice for that 15 minutes, sticking with that theme, 15 minutes twice a day, and don't get overwhelmed, but literally go in there. And I would say shoot for maybe 5 people. And I think I would say the carrots or things to add to it is don't just engage with just the first post you see. Make sure it's somebody who has heavy influence or you're really trying to get into their network, right? Mm-hmm. So you're really trying to post on somebody who already has a lot of engagement going on amongst their comment. Don't just comment on one of your other fellow friends who may have like 1 like and no other comments on it. That's not what Matt's talking about, right? Just to kind of be clear. Or
yep.
Yeah. Okay. So, no, good points there. Now for the advisor who has been doing podcasting, or not even advisor, it could be anybody who does podcasts. So you guys have an arsenal of data. So what would be considered good, or like, what are good numbers for people to strive for maybe in their first 6 months, a year, or now that you've been doing it a couple of years? What's the number of downloads that makes it feel like, okay, we're on to something here?
So that's a terrible question. Not to be mean to you, but I get asked that question freaking all the time because I do all of the sales here at Proudmouth, and you know that. So thank you for putting me on the spot, brother.
Of
I
course,
really appreciate
I'm a
that.
customer.
Yeah, I know. All right, so number one, your first milestone needs to be getting your first episodes out, right? And I know that sounds weird, but it's a slog, and you got to do it. Your second real milestone needs to be getting 10 episodes in the can, so that you actually. That's when you can start trying to pay attention to the numbers. Celebrate 100 downloads, then celebrate 200 downloads. I don't think people really understand, and the numbers change all the time, but I'm going to give you the last number that I saw. If you're getting over 485 downloads per episode, you're in the top 25% of all podcasts in the world, Jeremy. And so advisors are thinking, or, your listeners are thinking, I need to be getting thousands of downloads. No, you don't. First off, you can't handle them if they all converted. But that's really not the right thing to look at. The number one thing that you need to pay attention to in the content creation journey is that this is a client communication, client retention, greater share of wallet tool. Those are the three things you need to pay attention to. And if you do it correctly, this pays for itself exponentially, right? I mean, could you imagine being able to, somebody's already bought from you, buy more stuff from you? I mean, that's freaking awesome. Mm-hmm. Secondly, retain people, which you guys have no way to measure that at all, right? But that's the number one reason why clients don't continue to do business with an advisor, is they don't feel like they're being communicated to or listened to, right? This is why the content creation journey happens over and over again. And then it's easier to refer somebody to your content than it is to call my guy. Because Jeremy, I don't know about you. Actually, I do know. Mm-hmm. You texted me when we first met and I didn't know what the number was. I didn't respond. I didn't even respond to the text until I was like, who is this? And you're like, it's Jeremy. How's it going, Jeremy? What's up? But man, if you called me, even though we're on a texting relationship, if you called me, I won't pick up the phone. Mm-hmm. Because that's not my preferred means of communication. And if you're trying to target anybody under 60, really, then you have to learn how to have a strong digital strategy. Does that answer your question?
That does actually. I want to go back to that part, but how do you get real numbers when it comes to, because y'all's team does a great job of tracking, let's say Spotify, mm-hmm. Apple, the main players out there that do podcasting via audio, but how do you consider when you go YouTube and video? Because you and I both know just because someone gets a lot of views on there, that could be purchase. So
that's right.
How do y'all put that in consideration? And I think it's a real mental gymnastics of somebody who's doing podcast and recording, which helps them basically, if they see large numbers from other episodes and they're not getting it, it just creeps into your mindset of like, man, what am I doing wrong? Even though you may not be doing anything wrong. So talk a little bit about that.
I think we're equating vanity metrics with actual impact. So I mean, I don't really know how else to really define that. What we provide to our clients is the analytics on what is an imperfect system. And you've experienced this for 3 years now. So what we do is we broadcast your podcast on YouTube now to every major podcast player. The problem is it doesn't talk back as well as we would like. Right. And the data that we get back isn't really great. So unfortunately, it's still on the content creator's seat. What most of you are doing is it's the same thing you're doing on social media, is you're screaming into the void and it just you assume people are listening, but none of you ask your clients. Like when a prospect comes in and they say, well, I was referred to you by Jeremy. Great. Referral. No. That's like one of 50 levels of questions that you should be asking. Mm-hmm. And you don't necessarily need to, start asking these questions all right at the beginning. But, hey, well, God, Jeremy's a great guy. After Jeremy referred you, do you mind if I ask what you did? Well, I went on your website tech. Oh, you have a podcast, click. Did you listen to any of the, no, I didn't listen, but I know you have a podcast. All right. Well, yeah, there we go. Did you follow us on social? I didn't follow you. I stalked you a little bit. Okay. Social media. But those are the sorts of things that we have to start paying closer attention to, because there isn't a tool as of now. There are some really in-depth content management systems that can do that for you, but that's the sort of stuff that you have to pay attention to.
So very good insight there. I mean, that was a good customer journey almost. I think you guys talk about this a lot, digital footprint.
Mhm.
So where they're going amongst their journey. I quoted this article we got earlier this year where who was it? It was Google and Forbes, the Google Analytics, or it was called the Change Activation Model. So do you know this article or no?
There are lots of different numbers, so I'd like you to keep going. But
Yeah.
yes, Kirk and I pay a lot of attention to this.
Yeah, so it was basically 11 touch points, 4 forums that you have to be on for your actual presence based off of Google, and 7 hours of content
Hmm.
was the number. So 11 touch points, 7 hours of content, and then 4 different forums that they need to see you online in order to be really just not only engaged, but think like, okay, this is actually someone that I'm starting to build trust and credibility to. So to your information there with the digital footprint, very important. We talked about that a lot for 2025 business planning.
Mhm.
What sells for you when you're not gone? And a lot of advisors who may be getting a little older as the years go on, they are just needing to bring in some younger, just some new young people in there. And you need to learn as an advisor how to do all that. You just delegate that out to the younger individuals. So that's very good insight from you. But I want to talk about this real quick. You mentioned something which is very spot on. Text over call. So consumer behavior. So talk about that a little bit more on the marketing side, where just because Matt and Jeremy don't like to communicate very well on, or they don't prefer call, they like text messaging because I'm the same way. It's easier for me and I can multitask there. Some consumers though, they're the opposite. They need the phone call, or maybe they do need the text. So talk about how y'all's processes helps an advisor check off the boxes.
Yeah, this is a client service intake, client journey thing that's vitally important for you to ask the question, what is your preferred means of communication? You're going to be surprised, right? Some people are going to say email, some people are going to say phone calls, some people are going to say Zoom, some people are going to say DM on Instagram, right? Some people are going to say texting. But again, Jeremy, you as the communicator are the one who has to be flexible, right? Now you can also use that as a barrier, which is what I think you and I probably do more than anything is
Sure.
I know what my preferred means of communication. Now I'm going to respond to those more quickly. But I still, I'm always on email. If you DM me on any social media platform, not any, but most social media, I'm going to be there, right? I respond to all of my own DMs and all of those sorts of things, but you have to ask that question. And when you are on this content creation journey, this social proof journey that we do for you at Proudmouth,
Mm-hmm.
it just reinforces all of that stuff. So Jeremy texts me. That's going to remind me, because I know you, that, you know what, hey, I wonder what Jeremy's doing. So I'm going to jump on Instagram and I'm going to see what you're doing with your family. Or, I'm going to go on LinkedIn and say, oh my God, gosh, he recruited these 4 advisors, these amazing, you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
But you have to have, it's an ecosystem now. It's not just this singular point where a lot of your listeners and a lot of the older advisors and agents that you and I both know very well, it was all phone based, man. 10,000 dials, 100 appointments, 10 pieces of business, right, brother? I mean, that's what we grew up in. That doesn't work as well anymore. You just have to be way more flexible.
Yeah. Really good advice there. I would say if you're talking to an advisor, which you do on the daily, they're looking for 2025 and they just say, Matt, your favorite word, marketing. It's all marketing, even though you and I both know getting in front of people is one thing. But if that person is saying, hey, Matt, if I need marketing help for 2025, what are maybe the top 3 tips for 2025 and beyond for that advisor?
So no, the first one, it's crazy. I was just talking to an advisor an hour before you and I are recording this, prospect, not a client. And he said, reallocation of current marketing spend. And I love that phrase, especially because this is one of the reasons I love your organization so much, because of the marketing spend. But what you're spending your money on now might not be what you should be spending your money on in 25, or if this in years to come, regardless of when you're listening to this. Mm-hmm. If what you have been spending money on isn't giving you the results that you're looking for, you should be reallocating it to a content marketing strategy. Because again, if you look at Seth Godin, if you look at Gary Vaynerchuk, if you look at really any high profile marketing expert online, they're saying that this is not the way that marketing used to be. You have to do this anyway. The other thing that I think is super important is budgeting, because a lot of advisors are still using their practice as their own personal piggy bank. They're not running it like a business. And that business is 7 to 12% of gross, not net, needs to be spent for high growth firms. If you want to be a high growth firm, 7 to 10 is really 7 to 12 is where you have to be gross, not net. Before you pay yourself, before you pay any bills, you need to be spending that money on marketing. If you want a lifestyle practice, it's 2 to 6%, right? But most of you are spending 1%. And you're wondering why you're not growing. It's because you're not flipping marketing. So your time allocation in 25 and in years to come needs to be that you need to be spending a lot more time on the front end of the funnel. Most of what you are all doing is spending all of your time on the back end of the funnel.
Very solid. Reallocation of marketing spend. That was great advice. What you just gave there, running the business. Yeah, I just don't know how. So the 1% on like top line dollars, yeah, it's tough to grow that way. But there are some that say it works. I think. So you mentioned a book. So the book that recently came out, and what was the title of that one again?
It's called "Shut the F Up and Listen." And the idea here is for your audience specifically is. Mm-hmm. If you learn, so everybody knows active listening, which is the nodding and the mm-hms, right? So what I did in this book is I basically deconstructed that into 7 different types of listening, and then how you take those 7 different types of listening and practice them. My grandmother said, I start the book off by saying, my grandmother said to me when I was very young, you have 2 ears and 1 mouth. You should be listening twice as much as you talk. Basically, she's telling me to shut up, dude, which is where the title of the book came from. But most of us are listening to respond. We're not listening to listen. When you as a salesperson change that. So you're younger than I am, but we've grown up in the sales industry together, right? You and I both have. Mm-hmm. And one of the biggest questions that you always get in sales training is, don't ever ask a question you don't know the answer to, right? When you abandon that crappy piece of Zig Ziglar advice and realize that what you should do is you should allow your prospect to uncover what their actual issue is, you're going to close so much more business. So Jeremy, proof's in the pudding here. I give you some numbers here. Kirk and I started this business in 2017. I've done the sales exclusively for the past probably 5 or 6 years. Okay. I have used all of the systems in my book, which is why I wrote the book. And we've generated over 8 million in revenue by me not saying crap on sales calls, by me showing them that I'm listening to them, that I care, and that I'm responding to what they're saying instead of what I think they're saying. And the problem is everybody says that you need to listen, but dude, nobody teaches you how to do it. So I have actual exercises in the book to help you become a better listener and truly practice what I call engaged listening.
I love that. That's actually very solid. I think, especially in going into 2025, that's things as, I mean, you're a smart guy. I'll give you your kudos. You're very smart.
Thanks, brother.
On the marketing side. But the one thing that we can't control is that man in the mirror, woman in the mirror moments of, so what are you going to do about it? Because we all know what we should do, but then it's the action items. So it's what are we going to do to make ourselves from going from good to great? It's not just a mindset deal, but to have tips along the way from people that have had success starting to integrate new processes. So that's what you're saying the book has for just betterments to the audience, whoever's reading the book.
Absolutely. So if you are in a leadership position, if you're in a sales position, or if you're in any sort of relationship, the number one thing you need to get better at is listening, guaranteed. It's the number one reason why clients leave you. They don't feel like you're listening. You're not communicating to them. The number one reason why you have unhappy team members is because you're not listening to them. And if you're in a relationship, showing your significant other that you're actually listening to listen, not listen to respond, fundamentally changes the game. So many of us, especially in financial services, we're problem solvers. Dude, you and me are both that way. Come to me with a problem. Hell, I can get you that answer really quick. And me as a business consultant, I've worked over 1,000 financial advising offices. There are very few things that you can come to me with. I can't give you the answer. But here's the problem. I can tell you what to do, but your implementation quotient is crap. If I can help you figure out what you need to do and you get the buy-in, and the only way to do that is listening. All of a sudden, when you have a client comes in and says, I am terrified, I'm not going to have enough money in retirement. Okay. Can you tell me more about that? That's not what they're expecting for you to say. And then when they get done with that, then you do what I teach in the book. It's called the dramatic pause, which is when they get done talking, you give them that space in order for them to process what they just said. And then they're going to want to fill the space because silence is uncomfortable in our society. And then all of a sudden you went from this level of depth to this level of depth in the conversation, much, much deeper. Kerblanky. Now they're telling you exactly what's going on. Well, you know what, Jeremy? You know, my parents were in poverty at the end of their life, and I'm terrified of that. Okay, listen, I'm not going to guarantee you anything, but what I want you to know is I agree with you. My whole goal, the reason why I get up every day is so that doesn't happen. And I'd love to be able to potentially present you with a solution so that that doesn't happen. They just sold themselves, Jeremy, and it was because you didn't say, well, you know, I've got this great variable annuity and it's got a 14% of blah, blah. No, shut up, man. Just shut up. They'll sell themselves. The sales process takes longer, but you are going to have a fan because here's the deal. Right now in this world, we have an epidemic of loneliness, a lack of connection. Everybody is just yelling in person and online because they just want somebody to show that they're being listened to and to be heard. But unless you actually know how to do it, and active listening is empty listening. Because it's not about the speaker, it's about you showing you're listening. My whole book, the whole system is how do you go into a conversation with specific intention that is to benefit the talker, not you. That changes everything. People feel it and it changes. I mean, this is going to sound super corny, dude, but it can fundamentally change this world. If we all just shut up in sales, shut up. In leadership, shut up. In your relationship, stop trying to control everything and just shut up and listen. And you're going to learn so much about yourself. You're going to learn so much about everybody else, and you can really make the world feel less lonely.
Powerful. And I can only imagine the power behind authenticity that comes when you start to just listen more. Yeah. So that's good. So it's live. Where can people go?
If they just type in literally shut the F up book or shut the F up and listen book on like Amazon, your local independent booksellers, they can order it for you there. But yeah, that's, I've got a audiobook that's going to be out by the time this podcast comes out. I've got a Kindle book, paperback, hardcover. You can get it anywhere.
I've been really driving this audiobook lately because that's what I'm doing now. It's just more efficient. It just really is. So that's good to hear. You have a customer. I will buy your book.
Thanks, brother.
Let's do it on the road as I run. So as we're wrapping up here, so very graciously, I mean, awesome content. I think if you're an advisor and you listen, there's a lot that your team can do for them. We talk a lot about delegating. Proudmouth is who Matt works with, as he's referenced a couple of times, continues to help advisors across the industry. Is there anything we missed as we're wrapping up, Matt, that final words of wisdom?
Listen, reach out to me. All right. My days are spent doing one of three things. Number one, talking to people like you, right? So podcasting. Number two is convincing people to buy what we do. And the number three is giving away an enormous amount of stuff, which is actually where the majority of my time is spent. I just had an hour and a half conversation this morning with somebody who will never be a client of ours. There's stars aren't going to align. They're not going to be a client yet, I should say. But I gave them everything that they needed to go ahead and begin their journey. So if anything that I said to you resonates today, message me on LinkedIn, direct message me on LinkedIn, email me at matt@proudmouth.com. Just freaking email me. Or even better, just go through Jeremy. He's got my cell phone number. Don't get my cell phone number out. But he's got my cell phone number. So if you are already working with Jeremy and you want to know more, he's got access to my calendar. And I would love to be able to help you. Because here's my last word is this. This is not an option anymore. If you're going to have a 21st century practice, you have to have a digital marketing strategy, a content marketing strategy. That's just the reality.
Very good advice. Thank you very much for your time today, Matt. Also, thank you to the listener for tuning in to this week's episode. Make sure to subscribe on your favorite listening device so you do not miss out on any future episodes of the Advisor Mentorship Podcast. Make sure to also subscribe to our YouTube channel at Jeremy Hauser Amp and connect with us on LinkedIn while you're sharing this episode with a colleague and a friend. Just remember, in a world full of betas, be an alpha.